Is the Black Butler fandom dying? Already dead, long gone, decaying even? Never to be seen again? Well, if you're anything like me, then you've probably assumed that Black Butler has long since lost its cultural relevance, and whatever is left of the fandom is now delegated to the dark corners of the internet, subreddits, weird YouTube rabbit holes, the 1 to 2 Tumblr blogs that are still active. You know, places no one goes. I say this with love because I do frequent the subreddit because it is the best place to read the manga without paying for it. This is a joke for legal reasons. I am not advocating for piracy. Disclaimers aside, I've noticed over the past year there's been a sort of resurgence in Black Butler. I'd begun to see merch being sold at anime conventions again, cosplayers digging out their old cosplays for throwback content on TikTok, panels about the series being held at conventions, and people actually showing up to the panels, mostly to see if the fandom was even still alive and kickin', and what the fandom space was like now in the 2020s compared to the 2010s. Back in May of 2022, I wore a CL cosplay to an anime convention. It was one of those cosplays that I had been wanting to do for years, so I decided to just do it for the sake of my inner teenager. To my surprise, there were quite a few Black Butler cosplayers around the convention, and I even overheard someone express confusion as to why they were seeing so many Black Butler cosplayers in our God-given year of 2022. Especially considering that for the past few years, it seemed that the fandom was dying out for good. Has Black Butler hit its nostalgia factor? We've seen this with series like Ouran High School Host Club and Twilight. People who grew up with the media are now looking back on it and coming back to it to reminisce, and it's bringing a new surge of life into these once dead and decaying fandoms. There are 3 main causes that I believe are the final nails in the coffin that is the Black Butler fandom. So let's run through them. The first nail being the anime adaptation. The Black Butler anime is a mixed bag. However, the anime acted as a gateway into the series for a vast majority of fans, and a portion of those fans only consumed the anime, never reading the manga. And I get it. Anime is generally more accessible through legal means than manga is without having to spend a lot of extra money. However, those who only watched the anime haven't had any new content since 2017. To put into context how little the anime covers, the manga has 10 story arcs at the time of recording this video, 9 of which are complete. However, the anime only covers up to the first 5 of those story arcs, and the earlier adaptations are not entirely faithful to the manga. Not to mention, the anime original storylines made the continuity of the anime a bit confusing to follow for those not in the know. I'm looking at you, Season 2, mostly. But also, the jump from Season 1 to Season 2 was a little bit confusing as well. But it's been a hot minute since I've seen it, but from what I remember, they tried to explain it. But yeah, going from Season 2 into Book of Circus, Book of Murder, and Book of Atlantic, you're like, what happened? What's going on? Is CL demon? Yes or no? I think I still see posts to this day asking about the continuity of the anime in regards to Season 2 and most of Season 1. It's been so long, almost 2 decades, and we still are asking these same questions. Confusing continuity aside, when a community doesn't have new content to work with, interest in the community tends to wane and people fade away. They move on. Nothing captivating their attention, so they move on to the next best thing. And that's alright. No fault there. However, we've got 2 more nails to discuss. This next nail, I think, was the most damning for a lot of people, or at least the people in my local community. Manga frustrations. In 2017, when the manga revealed that the 2CL theory was in fact real and true, many readers in the English-speaking community were unhappy with that twist. This mostly affected those outside of the Japanese audience, since most of the foreshadowing was done with vague language that got lost in translation. This was the spark that lit the flames of disinterest for some of the more casual fans. However, it's compounded by the fact that around this time, monthly chapter releases became shorter and shorter in length, with some releases containing as little as 7 pages. Shorter chapters compounded with an extensive flashback arc that was going on at the time left many readers feeling dissatisfied, and several people phased out of the community during this period, which honestly is still ongoing. The manga may no longer be in flashbacks, but the pacing is not good, or it doesn't feel good. It's kind of at a snow's pace? It's at a snail's pace. That, paired with the shorter chapters, make the reader feel as if there's nothing going on. An average Black Butler reader will wait an entire month just for one half of a conversation, and then have to wait another month for the conclusion and payoff of said conversation. I will say, this is not Yana Toboso's fault, however. The page limits are given to her by G Fantasy, the magazine that Black Butler is published in, and I get it. More popular series get limited slots as they begin to reach their end. It's a way of milking what's left, and Black Butler is an incredibly popular manga series in Japan. I mean, we keep getting stage plays that no one asked for. I'll be real though. The ones I've seen are really good.
グレルさん、皆様をお屋敷までどうぞよろしくお願いいたします。
And I know I have made a bold claim that Black Butler is nearing the end of its story. I've been feeling this way for a while now. I mean, we're getting big plot twist reveals, and it is feeling like we're ramping up to the final story arc, if we're not in it already. I estimate we've got maybe 1 or 2 story arcs left. I fail to see how much farther this manga could go if I'm wrong. I worded that really weird. Basically, I don't see the story going on for too much longer, and if it does, maybe it's a supernatural. 15 seasons. I only watched the first season. That's alright. The third nail in this coffin is fandom culture and shipping culture, and how it's changed over time. Anyone who was in fandom in the 2010s could tell you that it was a wasteland of anything goes, and anything really did go. Any ship could be a fandom's most popular ship, regardless of legality or morality, for better or worse. However, that started to change around 2015, from what I recount seeing on Tumblr. There was a move for fandom to engage in moral purity discourse. Now, where does Black Butler fall into this? Well, for those who didn't keep up with Black Butler fandom over time, the series has kind of garnered a negative reputation for being pedo bait, and also the uncomfortable at best and downright triggering and disgusting at worst fan content that the fandom made surrounding the most popular ship, Sebastiel. It's been a long time since I've uttered those words from my mouth. Long time. However, around 2015, there began to be a shift in fandom culture in online spaces. Moral purity tended to be the thing that people wanted to strive for, and thus started the endless discourse. One side fighting for their right to sexualize minors and get off to children being with adults in ways they definitely should not be in, and the other side fighting for their right to sit on top of a moral high horse and harass anyone who does not agree with them, no matter how small the disagreement is. But what if I told you there was a secret third side? A secret side discussing the actual effects of problematic content and the way that people with ill intention uses problematic content and the normalization of such things to harm and manipulate others, and also just the fact that sometimes there is a time and place for problematic content as a form of catharsis. But again, that's the secret third side. We don't talk about that as much. Needless to say, the discourse was exhausting, and it permeated every corner of the fandom, at least on Tumblr. However, I think it did change the landscape of the Black Butler fandom. It became easier to avoid seeing not safe for work content, and a lot easier to avoid coming across Sebastiel content, because due to harassment, people started engaging in more problematic things behind closed doors or within their inner circles where it was safe. However, I do feel like I need to add, based on my time watching and making cosplay YouTube videos for this fandom, that shift seems to only be on Tumblr, and I have since seen people saying that the Twitter space for the fandom is still full of sub-SCL, so that's something to be aware of if you decide to go looking for where the fandom still exists. I will say, the subreddit seems pretty safe. Just like the secret site of discourse, there is a secret and final nail in this coffin that is the Black Butler fandom, and it's one that can't really be attributed to any particular event or thing. It's just the natural course of life. People grow up and they lose interest in things that they liked as children, and while the Black Butler manga may have been intended for an older teen/young adult audience, many of the fanbase tended to be very young, especially back then. However, this isn't really unique to Black Butler, so it's less fun to theorize about. I do want to say, I wrote this whole section about how the fandom has died, knowing full well that there are still parts of the fandom that are alive and thriving. They're just considerably smaller parts compared to what they used to be, and a lot of the people that made up my fandom experience are gone. They're in jail, they deleted their Discord servers, they moved on, they've had traumatic things happen to them, and decided that Black Butler's just not it, and that's fair. But at the same time, there are still people who are devoting a lot of time and energy into engaging with this medium and the fandom, and I don't want to discredit that. So, I'm not talking about you. I guess I'm included in this, because even though I've left the fandom, I never quit making content for it. Like, I've made a Black Butler related content at least once a year since I've started doing it. That's not true. No, wait, that is true. I did make one Phantom Highs vlog in 2021. Darn. I guess I'm a part of these people that has devoted so much time and energy into the series that I can't let it go. Or maybe it's the undiagnosed autism and special interests. I'm gonna write that one down. Now that the fires of old fandom have been mostly put out and the ashes have settled, people are starting to look through the ruins of what once was the Black Butler fandom with a level of fondness that only death and distance can provide. It's rather silly to say a fandom has reached its nostalgia factor when a lot of what I cited as nails in the coffin happened within the past 6 or 7 years, which, in the grand scheme of things, isn't that long. However, it does make sense when we recognize the fact that the first season of the anime came out in 2008, and the manga started in 2006. Black Butler has been running for around 17 years as of this fall, so fall of 2023 for people who are, for some reason, watching this farther in the future. For many, we're reminiscing on our childhoods and teenage years, and it makes sense. Many of the other anime that have been seen as nostalgia anime are from the same period of time. Anime is different now. The common art styles have evolved over time, the tropes and popular story elements have also changed over time, so there isn't really anything out there currently that scratches the same itch that Black Butler and many of these other older series could scratch. If you want that mid-2000s anime riz, you've got to go back to the old favorites. And those of us that came of age with the series are ready to adorn the rose-colored glasses and look back on all the good times we had, and try our best to ignore the scars that may have been left over time. I know all fandoms have their issues, no fandom is perfect, and at the end of the day, most fandoms are essentially the same. But Black Butler has been one of the worst fandoms I have ever had the misfortune of being in. And yet I've come back to it with open arms, ready to make content I wish was being made so that I can consume it. Although it doesn't hit the same consuming your own content. So I'm gonna need other people to make Black Butler video essays because I want to watch them and I don't want to watch my own. Thank you. And the real irony is that my own actions have helped in this. I've continued to make content, I've made countless cosplay videos, I never truly left the fandom, despite what I might say. And that's done its course in keeping the fandom alive. Oh, not that I'm egotistical enough to really truly believe that I have so much of an impact. But someone on Tumblr once called me a god of the fandom, so I can't even pretend to really take that to heart. I'm sorry, I'm an August Leo. Anyway, the TLDR, Black Butler as a fandom died. But it's finding new life, it's coming back, it's seeing spring. And I think that's mostly due to nostalgia factor. So, hello, people who were watching anime in the early to mid 2000s and 2010s. How you doing? I hope your middle school days aren't catching up to you. I hope your mid to late 20s, early 30s, or beyond are treating you well. Welcome back to the Black Butler fandom. Let's make it good this time around.